Hi, everybody. Welcome. If you're here watching, go ahead and say hello in the chat so I know I have people here with me. I am Laura, and I do love teaching, and I especially love talking about the English language, phonics, morphology, etymology, to try to mitigate people's expression of English is so weird, it's so stupid, it doesn't make any sense. Because I'm here to tell you it actually does. And why I can speak with at all authority on that is because I thought it was weird and stupid until I was in my 40s. And so now I'm not in my 40s anymore, and I want to share with people. Like, I don't want generations of people growing up thinking English is dumb or English is weird. So that's why I'm on TikTok Live. I'm also on YouTube Live if you want to see what I'm sharing as far as the screen goes. So I've been teaching since 95, so 30 years in the field. I'm showing on my screen my first year picture 30 years ago, a younger Laura, a less informed Laura about the English language. I was taught during the whole language movement, English phonics doesn't matter, spelling can be invented, and that's what I thought for many years. So I have created a visual image, the layer cake, and this cake helps make sense of the history of English, because that's how spelling will make more sense if you understand the history. So here was the first live I did with the cake, explaining the different layers. English was born 450 AD. That's the Anglo-Saxon layer, the Germanic tribes. Then in 1066, the Viking, Norman French came over and took over, and that ushered in a whole new layer of our English language. That ushered in French words, which are Latin-based, that the Anglo-Saxons did not say. So remember, the Anglo-Saxons were Germanic tribes, and they spoke common, ordinary words, whereas when the Norman French moved in, they brought in all their fancy words, words of law and government, and that was what my last YouTube Live was about. So tonight I'm going to talk about what happened after 1066, because obviously French didn't stay the dominant language because England doesn't speak French. So what happened? So that's what I'm going to be covering. Let me get to my slides. All right. Let's see if I have my right slides here. Just one moment. They're coming up. Okay. So we left off, let me move this around. That the Norman French had come in, bringing in Latin, and now we are in the Middle English, what is known as Middle English. Middle English isn't like a language, it's just representing that time period from 1066 forward where Old English is no longer a thing. It's like mishmashed with these new words that have come in. So what happened after that? How did we not remain a French-speaking country? Well, there were two main events that happened. Two big events. Event number one. Okay, so 1066, William the Conqueror comes in, ushering in French as a dominant language. 100 and change years, 1204, the King John, who's the king, loses Normandy to France. Okay, Normandy is a part of France, given to the Vikings who settled there. Well, King Philip of France was like, we want this back. And because King John was over in England, he was unable to hold on to that territory. So King Philip of France took back over Normandy. So Normandy was absorbed back into France. And the nobles, who were the French-speaking nobles in England, were now stuck in England. They lost their home country. And so they began shifting more towards English. And by 1362, so a couple hundred years later, from William the Conqueror, English is now used in courts. It's called the Statute of Pleading, and that said no more French in the courts. We're now going to be using only English. So that was the first big event that ushered in less French. Also, another huge event was the Black Death. So in the 1300s, so right around the Statute of Pleading, the Black Death happened, and it kills millions of people. And what happens is begin to gain power, and English rises socially as the language. So I have a couple slides to explain this. So the Black Death wipes out, they have about 35 to 50% of the population. It's a lot of people. And a lot of the people wiped out were the peasants. And that left, and some of the noblemen were wiped out, and monks. Like, it was just bad. Like, it spared no one. And so with that came opportunity. So farmers and merchants were now in this interesting position because they weren't peasants. You know, they're trained people, and they're not going to do grunt work. So they can charge now. And they also, because so many people had died, land was just left empty because they had died. People had died. So farmers and merchants were able to buy up land. They were able to make money. And they slowly became the new ruling class of England. And what did the farmers and merchants speak when the Norman French were in charge? English. So as they become the new ruling class, they're speaking English, and they want their children educated in English, not French. So by 1450, so remember, 1066 is when the Norman French came in, and I would say they came in and it was a slow decline ever since, but they did affect the language. But by 1450, English rules again. There is no French attachment anymore whatsoever. And English becomes the official language again of the government, the official language of education, the official language of courts. There was a huge resurgence in loving England and English, and all things England were good, all things French were bad. And so there was this huge English national identity that came out of this. And I do want to say Latin is still going strong in the church. So pure Latin is still the language of the church and scholars. Remember, Norman French was Norman French. It's a hybrid. It wasn't pure French. So I just want to always put a plug for the pure Latin in there. So now it's the 1400s, and we have a ton going on. It's just like kind of out of control. Let me move my face on the screen here. Okay, so the first thing that happens in the 1400s is this phenomenon known as the Great Vowel Shift. And so vowels became higher and longer in the mouth. So bite, everybody say bite, 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 bite. Well, it used to sound like beat, beat. So beat becomes bite, beat, bite. And a word like N-A-M-E, name, used to be, everybody say name, name. You can hear name longer. It used to be name, name. And so words changed. Also, during the Great Vowel Shift, it changed the sounds of how certain words were said, but it did not change the spelling. So as they were writing words down back in the 1400s, 1500s. They wrote how they said it. But over time, like the vowel sound shifted and other things as well. So that's the 1400s. Also in the 1400s, the printing press was invented, and that was huge. Now everybody can have a book. Before then, books were just rich people, monks, kings. Everybody now can have a book, which means now there's a need to read. Also, there was a need for standardizing spelling. So there was a beginning of spelling and grammar being standardized. But the thing about, remember, this is the 1400s, and the printing press was in London. So why this is important is when they were printing things, they were using the dialect spoken in London at that time. So a lot of the words we think are weird were once very phonetic back then. Thank you for putting hearts in TikTok. Keep hitting that screen. And then also the other big thing in the 1400s was the Renaissance. So this was a huge, rebirth of thinking, a big return to all things classical Latin and classical Greek learning, new ideas being born in art and science and literature. And we have many, many pure Latin words and now Greek words entering English because there is a need to express ourselves and a need to understand the classical time. So that's the 1400s. Well, in the 1500s, we got even more going on. I mean, these 200 years were huge. So, of course, we all know Shakespeare. So Shakespeare begins introducing new words like eyeball, swagger, fashionable, new phrases that Shakespeare introduces like in a pickle and wild goose chase. And he just made English richer and more flexible during that time. So also in the 1500s was something called the Scientific Revolution. So this was when the study of the world using observation, experiments, and evidence instead of just going with what tradition says or what authority tells us to think. That was going on as well. And when you have new discoveries, you need new words. And so scholars oftentimes would go grab Latin words or roots and Greek roots to begin naming things. So that, now you can see how our Greek layer was born during this, the 1400s, 1500s, all these Greek words. And then also exploration expands. And so as the age of exploration gets kicking, we begin, encountering new cultures and getting new words that come in. So that's the 1500s, 14 and 1500s. A lot is going on. So specifically, I want to now explain the Greek layer. This is why we have Greek in our language. So if you're on YouTube, we're at the top of the cake, the Greek layer. And how you know you're dealing with Greek is it's very domain specific. So about 70% of the Greek words do pertain to science, which is fascinating. Math and geometry terms, arts and philosophy terminology, like astronomy, biology, ethics, logic, symmetry, theater, hymn, all from the Greek layer. Also, we start learning about the connective O. It just makes us sound better when we're saying these Greek words. So we don't study morphology. Say it with me. We study morphology. We don't say psychology. Say it with me. We say psychology. We don't say, the doctor doesn't come and say, I'm going to listen to your heart with the stethoscope. We say stethoscope. But that sound in the middle, like morphology, psychology, stethoscope, is not a U. It's not an A. It's an O. That's why kids can do well on spelling bees, because when they know the language of origin, they're going to know that middle sound is an O. So that connective O comes in, just so we sound better. Also, we have odd phonics coming in during this time. And so the odd phonics would be the PH, like phone or alphabet, the RH, like rhombus, or the silent P, like in pneumonia, I can't even say it, or psychiatrist, or pterodactyl, Pterodactyl. That silent P, Greek. Also notice how all those words are science-y sounding. Thank you for the heart. Thank you. Also, this is my favorite. Y in the middle. Whenever you see the letter Y thank you for the rose, in the middle of words like if or im or Olympics, Greek, totally Greek. So I don't know about you, but when I was spelling, I could never spell rhyme. It just made no sense to me. Like, is it R-Y-H? I just remember being confused. But once you understand, well, RH is the Greek digraph that we use, and Y represents the vowel sound. Well, now rhyme makes a whole bunch of sense. So those odd phonics, Greek. Also, when we're talking about morphology with the Greek, one thing that's interesting is some Greek bases can be a word, like graph. Like, oh, look at the graph, or I'm going to graph the data. Some can be a word, a free base. Some, though, are a bound base, so they have to be attached with another one. And what makes Greek interesting is oftentimes you have a Greek base plus a Greek base. So you might have autograph, autograph. So you don't have any prefixes or suffixes, it's just two Greek bases. Or you might have telescope, telescope. It's two Greek bases. You don't have a prefix or a suffix. So that's, one interesting thing about the morphology aspect of the Greek layer. And then oftentimes if we have new inventions, I'm sorry, just a second, I need to move my face out of the way. Also, if we have new inventions, people will go to the Greek or the Latin layer of our language. So like, think about an orthodontist. Dont is Greek. Dent is Latin. Dont is tooth in Greek. So the orthodontist straightens the teeth. What's also interesting is when new inventions come around, sometimes the inventor will mishmash Greek and Latin. So when the television was invented, whoever came up with that word took tele from the Greek and vis from Latin. So seeing far away. So television, and that does have the suffix. Or teleport is one of my favorite words. You've got the Greek tele with port, Latin, meaning to carry, and teleport didn't come in to the language until like the 1950s when revivals happened. It's a religious term first. Like, oh, the Holy Spirit's teleporting me, carrying me, away. And it wasn't until the 60s when it became, I think, a part of Star Trek. And then teleport became, actually physically moving from place to place. So that's a little bit about the Greek layer. Now, I've had people ask me, Laura, at what age do I start talking to kids about the cake? And remember, kids are smarter than you think, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just be like, ooh, that sounds like a really scientific word. I bet that's from our Greek layer. Or, ooh, that's a really mathy word. I bet that's from the Greek layer. It might be from Latin, but that's when you can look it up. But that's what you can say for little kids. And so I always like to ask, if you're still on with me with TikTok, hello, what percentage of words do you think in English are attributed to the Greek layer? Anybody want to hazard a guess if you're here on TikTok? Anybody want to guess? What's the percentage of words that might be attributed to the Greek layer? No, thank you for your honesty. I would have been like that too. I don't know. 10%. It's not that many. It's 10% of words come from that Greek layer. And it makes sense because they came in later and they're very content specific. We don't think in Greek. You're not a lot of times reading those Greek words. Like, has anybody read pneumonia today in anything? Or has anybody uttered the word pterodactyl or psychiatrist? Like, they're very specific. So I'm glad we have them, but that makes up the Greek layer. So now first of all, it's very important to understand this so we don't say to anybody English is stupid and weird, because it's really not. And also, when you look in a dictionary now, it'll reference etymology. So I'm showing on my screen right now the word climate and a little excerpt out of a dictionary, and it has GK. So oh, that came in during the Greek layer. And in my mind, I envision the cake, and I know that means it came in, after the 1400s, because Greek, didn't come in until the Renaissance and then the scientific revolution, and then after. I also have another example here, genealogy. It says from the Greek. So again, genealogy, that is because it's got that logy at the end. Anything logy, the study of Greek, totally Greek. So that's why this is important. We don't want to misrepresent English as weird. So on my layer cake here, you can see now our three main areas of English. We have Old English, which was the Anglo-Saxon Germanic tribes around 450 AD. So if you need to sing happy birthday to English, it would be 450 AD. Then in 1066, when the Norman French came in, that ushered in the French and Latin layer of our language, and that time is called Middle English. Then English and French mishmashes and comes out on the other side a totally changed language, which coincides with the printing press and like the Renaissance, like I said, and then the Greek layer comes in. And so that 1500s is early modern English. So if we picked up Chaucer from Middle English, we would be able to understand it. But so that's the layer cake of English. Let me see if I have anything else to show you here. Oh yeah, and then on my cake, we are always borrowing from other languages, always. And just some words I have here. That's the cherry on top. We're always borrowing. Mosquito is Spanish. My TikTok people, I have 3 people. Thank you, my 3 dedicated people. We have jungle, comes in from Hindi. We have algebra, which is Arabic. And yacht. Anybody want to guess where yacht comes from? Norwegian. Norwegian, in case you didn't know. So if you're ever like, why is yacht spelled so weird? Well, we borrowed it from another language. So Lava, thank you. Thank you for being here. Like, I love teaching live. And IO says, do you give classes online? I'm going to start doing this. Just talking about English. If there's anything IO you specifically want me to talk about, I'm happy to deepen your knowledge around it, because that just makes everything easier. It makes spelling easier. It makes reading make more sense. Words just come alive, truly. And so that's where I'm going to end tonight. And I thank you for being here with me to talk through the top part of the cake. Do y'all have any questions? I don't think anybody's here on YouTube, but if anybody on TikTok has any questions, like is there any word you want to ask about or anything you're curious about that I can help you with? I want to speak my accent. Oh, you know what? I grew up in Oklahoma and Texas. That's called the Midwestern part of the United States. And what's interesting is people who grew up in that area have no accent. We're accentless. So thank you for saying that. Whereas if you go then into the South or Tennessee, they're going to have that twang. Perhaps not everybody, but yeah, America has a lot of dialects and accents within English. I want to speak your same accent. I don't know how to help that. I mean, other than practicing. And is there any word you want me to say, IO, so you can hear it? While I talk to TikTok, YouTube, I'm going to hang out. I'm going to sign off here. But YouTube, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and follow. And I'm going to finish up with